Hello and welcome to Supply Wisdom. My name's Aidan Thagard and I'm one of our senior solutions engineers here. Today, we're going to introduce you to our platform and set you up for success in engaging with our continuous monitoring and risk intelligence. I encourage you to follow along in your own instance of the platform as we take a look at some of the most essential aspects of our user experience. Let's begin on our homepage dashboard. This is the first thing you'll see when you log into app.supplywisdom.com. Before we look at anything else, I always like to come to the upper right corner here in the Help section and open up this methodology graphic as a way to refresh myself and others on what Supply Wisdom is all about. So Supply Wisdom, if you're not already familiar, provides continuous monitoring and risk intelligence on both third-party and location entities. And that monitoring and intelligence that we're providing spans the full range of risk domains that you see represented right here. Third-party risk domains in orange, location risk domains in magenta. Throughout our platform, you'll see alerts, high-level metrics, granular metrics, all rated on the same consistent scale across all risk domains, a scale from 1 through 10, low through critical. A critical risk is one that is actively disruptive, one that requires immediate attention. This can include such impacts as stopping the delivery of SLAs, damaging reputation, exposing sensitive data, and so on. Low risk ratings, low risk indicators have none of those immediate implications, and at worst could be very early indications of deterioration and risk. Moderate and high risks are those shades of urgency between those two extremes. Closing out of this methodology graphic, we return to our homepage dashboard. There's one final item I want to review before we get into the contents of the dashboard, and that's how to set up your personal preferences for receiving Supply Wisdom alerts. This is something I highly recommend as a first step. As soon as you log into the platform for the first time, set up those alerts so that you're seeing in your email inbox exactly what you want to see in terms of notifications of risk events impacting your portfolio. So to set those settings, come to the upper right corner here under your user dropdown, open up this menu and select Settings. You'll come over to the Notification tab right here and see that you have a few options in terms of how you want to receive alerts. I want to stress here that these settings impact particularly the email notifications that are delivered to you in terms of alerting. So regardless of what you set here, you'll always have access to your entire record of alerts in the platform. This is how you set what you receive via email. Here you can set your preferences in terms of alert criticality. Some folks want to receive all alerts of all criticalities as email notifications. Some folks only want to receive higher criticality alerts as email notifications. Here you can check and uncheck your preferences with regards to that. Additionally, you can set your preferences for receiving an alerts summary. That summary will contain all alerts of all criticalities, regardless of what you set up here. So for example, you might select to receive high and critical risk alerts as individual notifications, and then receive a daily or weekly alert summary that you can use to review your low, moderate, and informational alerts on a separate cadence. You can receive these summaries at varying timelines, as you can see right here. Separate from those alert summaries are automatically generated weekly portfolio reviews. The weekly portfolio review will give you insight into trends occurring within your portfolio, whether it be an event type of a specific kind trending upward in recent weeks, or a particular supplier or location being most recently impacted by a number of risk events. This is your chance to observe trending and get some summary level reporting on the state of your portfolio. At the bottom here, we have the option to receive or not receive Supply Wisdom resource articles via email. These resource articles are general insights that Supply Wisdom publishes to its entire user base regarding global trends in terms of supply chain and risk. If you choose not to receive these via email, you can always find them up here in the Risk Insights tab, article by article. So this notification tab is that first place to configure your settings, again, for email notifications of alerts. There's also an additional layer of settings that can be configured, particularly for users with administrator privileges. If you have administrator privileges, you have an additional layer that can be accessed again by coming to the upper right corner here, going to your Organization tab, and coming over to the Target Assignment tab. Here's where you can set your preferences for receiving alerts target by target. When we say target, we're talking about either a city, country, or third party. Certain individuals may want to receive alerts for certain entities and not receive alerts for other entities. Here, they can check and uncheck those entities for which they want to receive those alerts. You might start by turning off all targets and selecting a few. You might turn on all targets and deselect a few. Again, if you are an administrator, you have the ability to set these preferences not only for yourself, but for all others in your organization. If you as a user are looking to set these preferences for yourself, but do not have administrator privileges, feel free to reach out to your customer success representative and or your current administrator in order to set up the settings that will allow you to do so. Here we are on the homepage dashboard. Again, this is the first thing you'll see when you log in to the SupplyWisdom platform, and you can always return to it by clicking your home button up here. The homepage dashboard is going to summarize to you at a high level the current state of your portfolio across any third parties, countries, or cities monitored. You can toggle among the different types of entities in this bar up here. Regardless of whether it's locations or third parties, the graphs below are going to represent to you the current state of risk within your portfolio. Our first graph in the upper left here is showing us the current composite risk scores for all of our third parties. Composite risk being a single score that takes into account all of the risk domains for a given entity. Over here on the right-hand side, we're seeing a heat map, which is breaking down the scoring in our portfolio at a domain level. So scoring at the level individually of financial risk, cyber risk, operations, ESG, compliance risk, and so on. So when I see one critical right here, that's telling me that one of my third parties currently has one or more risk domains which are rated critical risk. I can click into the box here and see that it's this third party which has critical scores in these two domains. And as soon as I take note of this, if I want further detail on it, what I can do is click into the name of the entity I'm monitoring, whether it's a city, country, or third party. And that'll bring me to the profile level view for that entity where I can see all of the metrics, all of the alerting that is informing these current scores. I want to illustrate what these metrics look like for locations as well. So here I can toggle over to my countries, and I'm going to see the same spread of indicators, right? First, my composite scores on the left-hand side, then a heat map breaking down scoring at the domain level. And again, across all of these pages, I get a view of my top 10 targets in terms of the current riskiest scores in my portfolio. A unique insight that I get with locations is the ability to visualize risk concentration. So I can expand this world map right here, and I can see on the basis of color, the current risk rating for all of the countries that I'm monitoring. I can hover over any country I'm monitoring and see the individual domain level scores that are informing the composite score, and use this again as a jumping off point to inform any further focus that I might need on the individual indicators informing these high level scores, any actions I might need to take with awareness of these risks. Toggling over to my cities tab right here. Once again, I'm getting high level insights on my portfolio, and I'm getting insights in terms of risk concentration. I can expand this map with the same principles as the country risk. Now I'm able to visualize risk on a city basis. I can hover over any individual city here and see the individual risk domains that are informing that risk scoring. Use this to bring focus to my engagement with my risk data. Another feature available to you on the homepage dashboard is the label feature. Labels are subgroups that you can create within your portfolio to bring focus and clarity to the dashboard experience. So a label can be anything that you wish to create for individual users. This may be internal tiering classifications. This may be different supplier types. This may be different individuals' own portfolios for analysis purposes. Regardless of what the use case is, you have unlimited subgroups, unlimited labels that you can create, and you can create those labels on the one hand by navigating to the upper right corner here, selecting My Labels to view those. Additionally, you can use the Edit Labels option right here to bring up your Add New Label option here. Once I select Add New Label, I create a name for my label, and I indicate which entities in my portfolio should fall under that label. I can make a label personal, meaning only I see it, or organizational, meaning everyone in my organization has access to use that label to filter their experience. Once I've created that label, I can hit Done, and now it will be available to me in my label dropdown right here. We'll see this not only on this homepage dashboard, but on our alerts dashboard as well, and as we're filtering through our alerts. So setting up a label can really help you bring focus to your experience throughout the platform. Here I've created a sample label, for example, for a tier 1 classification. Let's say this is an internal classification my team is using. I want to view dashboarding for just my tier 1 third parties. I select that label. Now I'm seeing summary level metrics for just my hypothetically 2 tier 1 suppliers. So again, encourage you to use these labels to bring focus for different use cases within your overall portfolio. You'll also find the search bar here in the upper right corner as a great way to navigate through the platform and get right down to metrics that are of interest to you on any given day. You can use the search bar to get to an individual profile very quickly, right? Let's say I'm interested in getting to the profile for Amazon. I can type in the name Amazon in my search bar. I can click the name and hit this orange arrow. I'll immediately be brought to a focused view for just the current metrics for Amazon. But I can also use this to produce some comparative dashboards. Let's say, hypothetically, I want to compare the current state of risk among Amazon, AT&T, and Bank of America. I can select up to 10 targets in this search bar and hit this orange arrow. And when I do so, I am brought to a comparative dashboard showing me current metrics for all 3 of these. And again, let me reiterate, anywhere where I see the name of an entity that I'm monitoring, if I want to get all the way down to the full detail view for that entity, I click its name, I'll get to that profile view where hundreds of metrics are sitting in a current state to describe to me the state of risk. Here, I'm still at a bit of an overview state, determining how these entities stack up relative to one another. Finally, I'd like to point out some of the navigation options on my upper bar right here. So in your upper left corner, you may or may not have multiple separate environments within your portfolio. For example, if you're leveraging our location and nth party tagging, you'll have the ability to toggle between those entities for which you have tagged nth parties and locations and those for which you have not. So hypothetically, let's say I want to take a look at some of the third parties to which I've tagged nth parties and locations. Come to my upper left dropdown right here, and I select the critical tier with nth party and location tagging environment. Now that I've done that, I'm seeing specifically those third parties to which those tags apply. Scrolling down here, what I'll take note of in terms of immediate additional insights from this tagging include additional domains of risk, right? Alongside financial, cyber, ESG operations, and compliance, by doing some tagging, I've now generated an additional domain of risk for location risk, those locations I've tagged in my third party, and nth party risk if I've tagged any nth parties to my third party. So immediately at a high level, I'm getting additional insights. And also, if I'm clicking in to the profile for this entity, I'll see detailed insights on the entities to which I've tagged my third parties. Additionally, with my location tagging, I'll have the ability, again, to visualize location risk concentration on a global basis. So in my lower right-hand corner here, I can open up my world map, zoom in to any cities that I've tagged to my third parties. I can click on an individual city and see that I've tagged it to the following third parties. I can use this again at a diagnostic level. If I'm seeing any risk score on a city basis that's of concern to me, I immediately understand that it has implications for the following third parties in my portfolio. I can use this to inform any decision making or any further investigation of any entities in my portfolio. Fortunately, on a color basis, I'm seeing low risk across these cities right here, but I can use this map to flag any anomalies, any vulnerabilities that are developing, and ensure that my portfolio is well diversified against any location-based risk. Now let's dive deeper into the data. So again, starting on my homepage dashboard, I can click into see all targets right here, whether I'm in cities, countries, or third parties, to pull up a full view of the current scoring in each domain and at a composite level for all of my third parties, cities, or countries. Get a nice relative view of the state of my portfolio, entity by entity. I can toggle a number of different views of this data in the upper left corner right here. Again, use this to inform any further digging into the data that I want to do. I can use the same search functionality that we saw on the homepage dashboard to produce more focused comparative dashboards here. Select a few targets that are of interest to me, hit my orange arrow, and then I'll see a comparison of just those targets. I can toggle from cities to countries to third parties within this dashboard. I can open up some additional filters here and give myself further options. So again, we're seeing our label function right here. This is a great place to say, hey, for a specific label I've created, a specific service type, a specific internal tiering classification, I'd like to see comparative dashboarding for just those. I select that label, that'll filter my view right here. Additionally, I have an easy share option right here, which will allow me to share this current view with a colleague of mine. I hit this button and I can put in the email address of my colleague, hit share. They'll get an export of exactly what I see right here. I can also directly download the view that I'm seeing right here, as well as generate a PDF of that view. So now let's say we want to dig into the full detail view, every single granular metric for a city, country, or third party that we're monitoring. There are really a number of ways to get down to that detail view. Again, there's a profile view for every entity that you're continuously monitoring that contains hundreds of continuously updated metrics at that granular level. Essentially, anywhere you see the name of an entity that you're monitoring, you click the name of that entity, you'll get down to that profile level. So I might do that from my homepage dashboard. Hypothetically, let's say I'm looking at my countries. I see that I've got 7 countries with some critical risk domains. If I click into critical right here and click the name of any country, I will be brought to the profile level view for that country. So that's one way to do it. Coming back to my homepage dashboard here, maybe I'm interested again in a bit of high level comparative dashboarding before I determine which profile is of interest to me within my third parties. Maybe I'll click see all targets right here. And hypothetically, let's say it stands out to me that I'm seeing a high risk score in the financial domain for this third party. I want more details on that. Click the name of the entity. Again, I get down to that profile level view. So now we're at the profile level view for a third party. We have this same profile level view available to us for any city or country or other third party that we're monitoring. We can't stress enough, the profile view is the place to go for full detail on the current state of risk for any entity. You'll see granular metrics and you'll see a summary of the events that led up to the current state of those metrics. Those metrics sit in the lower half of the profile, and we'll look at those in a second, but also important to highlight, every profile is going to contain basic demographic info on the entity. It's going to contain this key highlights section, which if you click read more on, you'll see really meaningful context in every single domain of risk. As we're at a third party right now, we're seeing that context in financial, operations, cyber, compliance, and ESG. And this context is going to illustrate to you each of the events that led up to the current state of the metrics that we're seeing in the profile. The metrics are objective, concise, and extremely powerful in that sense. They can be even more powerful when you understand the context from which they emerged and the environment in which they currently exist, right? So within each of these categories, I'm seeing each individual event that has informed the current metrics. It's important to understand each of the individual events referenced here. The moment this event takes place, it's producing an alert to the owner of the portfolio, to you, and that alert is giving you not only the headline that you see here, but details on the implication of the event. However, the moment that event takes place, it's also ingested to the profile level view, and its impact is reflected in the metrics that we're seeing. So important to understand, both alerting and metrics at the profile level are always giving you that current view of risk. Profile level view is the place to go for that full holistic view. The alert is the place to go for that view of the particular event's impact. Highly encourage you to engage with these key highlights when you need further context on the state of risk for any entity, a nice historical timeline of how we got to the current state. Scrolling down here, of course, I'll be accumulating these metrics over time, which gives me the power to observe any trending, the directionality of risk with regard to this entity, which can help me to really understand the significance of the metrics that I'm seeing. I can filter this graphical view right here by selecting any domain that's of interest to me and getting a more granular view of that particular domain in this visual representation. Scrolling down to the bottom of the profile, this is the place to go for the greatest level of detail on the individual metrics. So here I'm seeing scoring in each of my risk domains, changing quarter over quarter up to the current state. I see that high level composite risk. And then here I see a score for each of my individual domains. Any domain that's of interest to me, if I click on it, it reveals to me the individual subdomains which sit within that domain. So in the case of financial, I'm seeing revenue risk, profitability risk, credit risk, and so on. Each of these subdomains is scored on that same scale that we're seeing throughout the platform, which is 1 through 10, low through critical. Here I can diagnose in this situation that it looks like revenue risk and profitability risk are primarily driving this high risk score and financial risk. Let's say that I want to understand what's driving profitability risk or any other subdomain. I click the name of the subdomain, and that shows me the individual metrics that are informing this scoring. The metrics, again, are rated on a scale from low through critical, as indicated by color right here. These are all critically rated metrics. Every single metric, regardless of what domain or subdomain you're in, is going to include this information icon, which you can hover over to get further detail on what's being described by the metric. Additionally, every metric that receives a high or critical score is going to include an implication statement, which gives you further context as to why a negative score in this realm matters, allowing you to make a clear decision about the implication of this particular metric for your relationship with a given location or third party and your tolerance for risk in that realm. So I happen to open up profitability risk as a subdomain within financial risk to reveal this detail view, but to be clear, I can navigate to any domain of risk and any subdomain and get the same detail view. So I can click into, for example, the operations domain right here. First, I'll see individual subdomains rated 1 through 10, low through critical. And beneath those subdomains, I will see individual risk indicators and metrics. You'll see that the nature of the metrics varies with the nature of the category of risk, right? In terms of operations, I'm seeing a skew towards more qualitative indicators. What I want to emphasize is that in the case of qualitative indicators, you might see references to particular events on which you'd like more detail. Right here, for example, I'm seeing reference to a management exit that has occurred in the last 3 months. If I want detail on exactly what event is being referenced by this indicator, that's when I scroll back up to my key highlights, click read more, find the domain that I was looking at, which is operations, find the category I was looking at, which is management exits. Now I can see the individual events that are being referenced by this metric. I've got the full picture of the state of risk in this category. Some additional features within the profile view that can be really meaningful are your ability to alter the timeline, which you're viewing in terms of metrics. So in these drop-down menus right here, you can specify various quarters of various years, which are of interest to you in order to filter the data that you're seeing on a historical basis. You'll also note that there is an easy share button. Again, right here, that easy share button allows you to put in the email address of a colleague and hit share, and they'll receive a full export of all the metrics and commentary that you're seeing at this profile level view. Similarly, you can leverage the download arrow right here to download just the metrics as a CSV file, or to download the entire profile as a PDF, which will form a nice comprehensive report on the current state of risk for this entity, whether it's city, country, or third party. If I select download as a PDF right here, if I leave all my boxes checked, that'll give me every aspect of information which is contained in this profile. That's going to include metrics, analyst commentary, implication statements, and so on. Or I can filter this to a more concise view. Let's say hypothetically, I'd just like to share some concerning financial metrics with a colleague of mine. I can uncheck every box here except financial and metric table. Now I've got a nice focused export of this data when I hit the download button. So we just took a look at the profile level view for a third party. What I'd like to emphasize now is that everything we described about the structure of data at the third party profile level also applies to the structure of data at the location profile level. Whether it's the profile of a city or a country, you can expect to see data presented in the same way. So what does that mean? First, we've got demographic info on our right-hand side right here, whether this is a city or a country being described. We've got a key highlights section right here, which if we click read more, it's going to give us meaningful context in every single domain of location risk in terms of the recent risk events, which are informing the risk scoring, the metrics that we're about to see. Again, a nice summary of alerts of events that have brought us up to our current state. Scrolling down here, we see a graphical representation of the progression of risk metrics over time for this entity. If we open up our dropdown right here, we can filter and bring further focus to this view with regard to a particular risk domain. Scrolling down here, again, these drop-down menus at the lower half of the profile are where the greatest level of detail is going to sit. I'm going to see scoring for each of my individual risk domains, adding up to a composite risk score. And then within any given risk domain, if I click the name of that domain, I will see individual subdomains scored on that same consistent scale from 1 through 10, low through critical. I can open up any subdomain to reveal the final level of granularity. the individual risk metrics, all rated low through critical, as indicated by color right here. In red, we've got some critical indicators. In yellow, some moderate. In green, some low. In orange, some high risk indicators. And every metric is going to include an information icon, which we can hover over to get the definition of the variable of the metric that we're looking at. Any metric with a high or critical rating is going to include an additional implication statement, which will give us context as to why a negative score in this realm matters, allowing us to make a clear decision about the implication of this metric for our unique relationship with a given location or a given third party. Scrolling down here, we want to illustrate this same level of detail is available in all domains of risk and in all subdomains, right? I can open up, let's say, the geopolitical domain of risk. First, I will see individual subdomains. Beneath those subdomains, I will see individual metrics, implication statements for my high and critically rated metrics, information icons showing me the definition of those metrics. Once again, we encourage you to take note of the availability of context for any qualitative indicators that you're seeing. So in this case, let's say the yes indicator for the social unrest and strikes category is catching my attention. I want further detail on what that yes is referring to. That's when I would scroll up to my key highlights, find the domain that I was looking at, which is geopolitical, and then I can view a timeline of individual events which are informing the metrics. In these cases, individual protests across this timeline, which have brought us up to the current state and current metrics. Now at the top of my profile here, I want to emphasize a few more features that are available in the profile level view. So you do have the ability to alter the timeline for which you are viewing metric data. Here you can select various quarters within various years to filter that view by different time periods. Additionally, you'll see the Easy Share button here once again, which allows you to put in the email address of a colleague, hit share, and they will receive a full export of this profile, all of the data contained within it. You also have the availability of this download arrow, which you can use to download just the metrics as a CSV file or to download as a PDF, all of the data contained in here, including analyst commentary, including that key highlights section. If I click download as a PDF, I can also select and deselect the areas which are of interest to me. If I leave all these boxes checked, I get a nice comprehensive report on the current state of risk for this entity. But maybe I'm interested in just describing the geopolitical state of this city to a colleague of mine. I might uncheck every box except for geopolitical and metric table. Now I've got a nice focused export of this data when I hit the download button right here. So we've taken a look at our homepage dashboard, at our profile level view, all of the metrics contained within the profile level view for third parties, for countries, and for cities. Something to emphasize now is that although that profile level data is extremely comprehensive, extremely valuable, the burden is not really on the individual user to go digging through that data to discover vulnerabilities that are emerging, because every user is set up to receive alerting, which will make them aware of deterioration in risk for any entity that they're monitoring, make them aware of events which have disruptive potential for their supply chain, for a given location, for a given third party. So what we're going to do now is take a look at how to engage with our alerting. Starting from our homepage dashboard, once again, which we can always navigate to by selecting our home button up here or selecting dashboard from this dropdown, we're now going to open up this dropdown menu and select alerts. Now what we're looking at is our dashboard for our alerting. Just as with our homepage dashboard, this is going to give us a summary level view of our portfolio event by event and give us the chance to identify emerging vulnerabilities or anomalies within our portfolio that might require further attention. We can see a summary of our alerts for the current quarter over here in terms of risk rating. We can see a summary of alerts for the past 7 days. I can click into any of these boxes, for example, 8 high, and see the 8 high risk events for my portfolio, which are being referenced. Here I can see alerts for the last 48, 24, or 12 hours. Again, using this homepage dashboard to diagnose what actually requires further attention. I can once again toggle from third parties to countries to cities in the upper corner here. And once I've toggled over to countries, I'm seeing a similar structure of high-level insights for alerts relevant to the countries I'm monitoring. So now I've toggled to the alerts dashboard for the countries that I'm monitoring. Again, I can identify alerts for the current quarter, past 7 days, past 48, 24, or 12 hours. And then additionally, I can visualize the concentration of these events on a global basis for those countries I'm monitoring. Coming to that lower right-hand corner, selecting the expand icon, I can visualize the concentration and risk significance of individual events for any country that I'm monitoring. Simply by hovering over a country, I can see the individual alerts which are being referenced by these ratings. I get a similar view when I toggle over to my city alerts. Once again, I can see the spread of alerts over various time periods, as well as coming down to my lower right-hand corner and visualizing risk events city by city across the globe for the cities I'm monitoring. This gives me the chance to observe if there's a meaningful concentration of impact in any particular location that might require further attention in terms of potentially diversifying dependence upon particular service providers, ensuring that my supply chain is resilient against any looming risk. Once again, I can hover over any individual city here and see the events, the alerts, which are being referenced by these markers. Some additional tools which are available to me on this alerts dashboard are going to include labels. So we talked about labels with our homepage dashboard. The same principles apply here. Labels are subgroups that I can create within my portfolio to filter my view at the dashboard level, as well as when I engage with my full historical record of alerts. One way to engage with my labels is to come to the upper right corner here and select My Labels. Another way to do that is to select the Edit Labels option right here. Once I've done that, I can click Add New Label and create a label of significance to me or to my organization. Labels might be relevant to individual service types within a portfolio of third parties. It might be relevant to simply an individual analyst's portfolio of locations or third parties. It might be relevant to an internal tiering classification that your organization uses. Truly, whatever use case is of interest to you, you can create a label that represents that use case. Add the name of the label right here, add the entities which apply to that label right here, select whether the label is personal, meaning just you see it, or organizational, meaning all users in your organization will see it. Click this Done button right here, and once you've done so, the label that you've created will be available in this drop-down right here, and you can use it to filter this dashboard view. I'll select my Tier 1 classification right here and see which alerts apply to third parties in that tier. And it looks like I have 39 alerts with specificity to that subgroup that I've created. Now I've got a nice focused view on those alerts, which are maybe most impactful to my most critical suppliers in this case. Additionally, I can filter the timeline for which this dashboard is showing me alerts by selecting various quarters or years up here. Now we can pivot and start to dig into the details of individual alerts. The best way to begin that is to click on See All Alerts right here. This is an option available within cities, countries, or third parties. So click See All Alerts, and you'll now see a representation of your full record of alerts up to the current date. A few things to note here about the alerts contained is that every single alert produced for your portfolio is going to be tagged to one or more of our risk domains, which are represented in black right here. Additional to that, every alert is going to be tagged at a much more granular level to a specific event type. So we have about 150 event types, which include such specific classifications as cyber attack, lawsuit, management exit, fine leveraged against my supplier, business disruption event. These are extremely granular classifications that overall are going to allow you to bring focus to your engagement with your alerts. The alerting is extremely comprehensive, covers all levels of risk across all of the risk domains in the platform. However, you have the ability with a few clicks to filter a really comprehensive record of alerts into a really focused view of a particular type of event or events impacting a particular entity. So right here up top, you can see that you have the ability to say, show me just my critical alerts, just my high and critical risk alerts, whatever the need may be. Additionally, I can filter my alerts by risk domain. Maybe I need to produce some reporting on just cyber events for my information security team. Maybe I need to assess any potential regulatory violations which could be associated with poor performance in the compliance realm for some of my suppliers. Whatever that may be, I can create those filters up here to get a specific view. Additionally, I can do a keyword search of any of my alerts right here. I can select viewing alerts for my cities, countries, or third parties right here. I can alter the timeline for which I'm viewing alerts right here. And then in the far right side, I have the ability to generate some additional filtering for my alerts. You'll see the event types come into play as a filtering option, right? I can select to view alerts applying only to a specific event type, get a nice granular view there. I can select that event type applying to various impact levels. I can select particular targets within my portfolio for which I'd like to view alerts. I'm seeing the label function once more. Again, I can now view alerts applying only to a specific subgroup, which I've created within my portfolio. Then I can also alter the timeline for which I'm viewing alerts date to date right here. If I've created a view within this page that is of meaning to me, I want to share with a colleague of mine, keep it for my records in terms of summary information of my alerts, what I can do is click this alert query button right here, set the criteria for an export of this record of alerts, click my export button, and now I've got a nice high-level summary of alerts of a specific type or of my entire record of alerts for my own use or for use within my team. Now that we've talked about how to engage with a summary level view of our record of alerts, let's talk about digging into the details of a specific alert. So any alert that we see in the platform, if we click the name of the alert, we'll be brought to the detail view for that alert. And we can do this obviously by engaging with the alerting in the platform. To be clear, we can also do this when we receive an alert as an email notification. So like we talked about earlier in the video, you have the ability to set your preferences for receiving alerts as email notifications by navigating to your upper right corner and selecting your settings and pivoting to the notification tab within those settings. Additionally, if you have administrator privileges, you can further configure alerts target by target by navigating to your organization tab right here, and within that, navigating to the target assignment option. Feel free to visit the earlier part of the video where we detail exactly how to make use of those options. Once we're at the detail view for an alert, we are going to get the most specific information available on this particular event. Up top, we're going to see the headline of the alert. In our upper right corner, we're going to see any and all entities in our portfolio which are being impacted by this event. This particular event has relevance not only to a location that we're monitoring in China, but to two third parties that we're monitoring in Microsoft and Microsoft Azure. Again, this will be specifically the entities in your own portfolio which are being impacted by this event. If this is an event that has relevance to a location or an nth party that you've tagged to a third party of yours, again, you can count on this upper right corner to list all of the entities which are relevant in terms of potentially being impacted by this particular event. You'll see classifications in terms of risk domain and event type, like we talked about earlier. Here you'll see a reiteration of the particular entities in your portfolio being impacted by the event. Under cascading impact, you'll see the most salient points in terms of the impact that the event is having on the entities in question. Under sources, you will see the individual sources that SupplyWisdom referenced to produce this alert and direct links to those sources if you're interested in further big picture context. Additionally, on the right-hand side, you will see a guidance actions to consider section. So every single alert is going to include a risk rating right up here, low through critical, on that same scale that we've seen throughout the platform. This guidance actions to consider section can give you further clarity on what exactly that scoring implies. The guidance section is giving you a full spectrum of potentially appropriate actions for mitigating or investigating an event of this type. The idea being that you, with an understanding of your particular relationship to a given third party or location, you can sift through this list and identify a point or two that applies to your particular service that is received from that third party or housed in that location and your particular tolerance for risk with regard to that entity. Scrolling down here, we can see that if this is a developing chain of events, SupplyWisdom will give you links to any related alerts, any previous alerts regarding a particular chain of events of which this event could be a part. Scrolling down here, we can also plot the frequency with which an event of this type is occurring for this individual entity, or in this case, the individual entities of China, Microsoft, or Microsoft Azure, and compare that to the frequency with which those events occur for our entire portfolio to understand, is this an event type that is trending upward in recent terms? Is this something that happens cyclically? How can that inform the actions that we take with regard to this event? Finally, scrolling back up to the top of the alert, we'll once again see an easy share button, which can allow us to immediately send an export of this full alert to a colleague of ours. We put in that colleague's email address and hit share. Additionally, we can use this download arrow to download a PDF copy of this particular alert for our own use. Our clients commonly use these exports to engage in conversation directly with a given third party or to simply circulate this information around their organization to the correct individuals. Now that we've talked about our profiling metrics and our alerting and the combination of those two to create a really complete picture of the current state of risk for any entities monitored, we want to talk about the power of these metrics accumulated over time. You have access to a number of analytical dashboards that are going to allow you to engage with your full record of alerting and your full record of scoring to potentially observe trends and produce reporting on meaningful indicators within your portfolio. So again, we've returned to our home page right here, either by selecting home page or selecting dashboard from this drop-down menu. What we're going to do now to navigate to our analytical dashboards, we'll open up this drop-down menu here to reveal our analytics dashboard options. We'll begin by clicking into our alert analytics dashboard. What you can see here is that the alert analytics dashboard is representing to you your entire historical record of alerts with a high level of interactivity so that you can quickly move from visualizing your entire historical record to a very specific type of event that is of interest to you. Again, for maybe observing trending or for producing reporting on observations that you've had within your portfolio. So what you'll see over here on our right-hand side is a list of essentially every variable that exists within alerting. And all of these variables are available to you as criteria for filtering the view that you have right here. Additionally, portions of this dashboard are interactive in the sense that, for example, if I'd like to view a representation of just alerts in the compliance domain, I can click compliance over here. Now I'm seeing just those particular alerts applying to that criteria. I can say, show me just my high risk alerts by clicking right here. Now I'm seeing just those. So feel free to engage with the interactive aspects of the dashboard as well as leveraging those criteria in the right-hand side over here. In the upper half of the dashboard, you get the chance to engage with various visual representations of the alerts and of the criteria that you've set. Scrolling down to the bottom half of the dashboard, you can also engage with these alerts in a timeline format. Right here, I can see individual alerts and their headlines and the targets to which they apply, the ratings that are applied to those alerts, and the domains under which they've been filed. I can also click any alert ID associated with any of these alerts, and that will navigate me back to the original alert that's being referenced here. So maybe I'm taking note of a recent alert, which I haven't yet dug into. I can click my alert ID, and that link will bring me directly to the original alert. So this is a great way not only to summarize information of which you're already aware, but to discover information which maybe you had not yet taken note of within your portfolio. What we like to say about these analytical dashboards is that the possibilities are truly endless. So we encourage a high degree of interactivity with all of the criteria here. The idea is you have the chance to visualize trends, to take note of information of which you were not already aware, as well as export various aspects of this information which are of interest to you or to your team. What you'll see within each of the widgets in the dashboard is a set of 3 dots in the upper right corner of that widget. If you select those 3 dots, you'll open up the option to download that particular visualization. You can download as an image, as a CSV for other aspects of the dashboard, download as a PDF. If I come down to my timeline right here, come to my upper right corner, you'll see I can download this as a PDF file, as an Excel file additionally. So these are easily exportable. Set the criteria that you want on the right-hand side and produce those visualizations, those accounts which are meaningful to you. Now that we've looked at our alert analytics dashboard, we're going to pivot and take a look at our third-party analytics dashboard. Again, I navigated to this dashboard with my upper drop-down right here. I selected third-party analytics and it brought me to this view. So the third-party analytics dashboard gives you the power to visualize the progression of individual metrics applying to your third parties over time. So here you are seeing a summary of overall composite risk among your third parties over time. Again, you're going to have a wealth of criteria through which you can filter this view. On your right-hand side over here, various criteria that you can select to filter exactly what you're seeing. Again, interactivity in the dashboard. Maybe I want to see just rating progression within the ESG domain for my third parties. I can select that domain and see just the movement in those ratings. Represented to me in a number of ways, right? I can scroll down here and see the individual moments at which those ratings have been updated for particular targets. I can scroll to the bottom of this dashboard and see reference to the individual events which have relevance to the criteria that I've set. So I don't have to navigate back to my alert analytics dashboard to connect particular alerts to the third-party metrics that I've set. Rather, it's all contained within this dashboard if I need it. Once again, any aspect of this dashboard which is meaningful to me, which I'd like to export, I can hover over the upper right-hand corner of that widget, select my download option, and select the file type with which I'd like to download. Now that we've looked at our third-party analytics dashboard, we're going to take a look at our third and final analytics dashboard, which is location analytics. And I can navigate to this dashboard by using my drop-down menu up here and selecting location analytics. To be clear, these analytics will only be available to you if you are actively monitoring particular locations, whether cities or countries. The dashboard is going to show you the progression of location risk metrics over time for the locations that you're monitoring. And once again, you'll see a number of criteria on the right-hand side available to you for filtering the views within this dashboard. The dashboard itself is also interactive to produce various filtered views. And once again, any filters that are set for the upper half of the dashboard will also produce a connection to any alerts which meet the criteria that you've set down below. So once again, if you're producing views of the progression of specific metrics and you'd like to relate those to alerts, you don't have to switch back to your alert analytics dashboard. You can contain that entire view within this particular dashboard. And also, once again, any aspect of this dashboard which you'd like to share, which you'd like to export, if you hover over the upper right-hand corner of the particular widget of interest, select these three dots and select download, you have the option to export the exact view that you're seeing right here. So to emphasize once more, the power of these analytical dashboards is the ability to observe trending, to learn about your portfolio from a level which you have not yet seen it, and also to produce reporting on observations that you have within your portfolio to produce evidence of decisions that are being made with regard to this data. This is where you can go to engage with the full historical record of data for your particular portfolio. With that, we bring our training session to an end. We encourage you now to engage fully with all the capabilities that we reviewed today, and should the need for further training arise or any questions arise, we encourage you to reach out directly to your customer success representative, who's always available to help you get the absolute most out of the platform. Thank you so much for your time today and have a great one.